Hey, what's up? You see any good games over the weekend?
Before we get started, Jeff, I just want to say that our podcast today is sponsored by Jenny's Ice Cream and Season 3 of Ted Lasso, coming soon to Apple TV. Now, Jenny's Ice Cream is making a Ted Lasso partnership ice cream called Biscuits with the Boss. It's going to be shortbread biscuits, just like Ted Lasso makes.
Just like the ones he makes.
Yeah, and it's going to be salty, creamy, everything that you want, alongside a brand new season of the most heartwarming comedy in television history. We just want to thank our sponsors at Jenny's Ice Cream for
Thank you,
sponsoring this
Jenny
podcast.
sponsors.
All right.
I don't
so
think
now
we had
that's-
agreed on a rate for sponsorship before this, but I know that I am now entitled to $5,000 from that.
No, you will get exactly 50% of the proceeds.
I'll get exactly 50%. It's almost like I already have exactly 50% of the proceeds right now.
It's in stock options that you're being paid. All right, you asked me if I watched any matches this weekend, Jeff. Let's. Oh, you clicked it and I clicked it.
They really got to make that thing not happen. Sorry, that's a little bit inside baseball. But if we both click the same thing at the same time, we both really want something to happen on this podcasting thing, it doesn't happen because we turn it off.
I'm pretty turned off already, so no actions required. But the banner scrolling on the bottom for our Twitch feed says, go ahead, fucking say whatever you want, Jeff. So I'm going to do that. Go ahead, say whatever you want, Jeff.
I'm glad you gave me this opportunity because I thought of something mean. No, actually, I'm not sure if it's mean. You told me that there's a game we can play later, so this was going to be an almost game that I had for you. It's a would you rather
This is not a game. Soccer is not a game, Jeff.
You think it's a game? No. Would you rather, Schuyler, win the Carabao Cup? Or would you rather beat your biggest rival 7-0?
I think you could frame this differently. You could say, would you rather win the Carabao Cup or not lose to your biggest rival 7-0? Like the absence of the negative, which if I could choose to keep the Carabao Cup and a 7-0 defeat to Liverpool, or lose the cup and wipe away the memory of that ever happening. Do you want to go not Silver Linings Playbook? What's it called? Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Right.
Do I want to give up all the good and the bad I had with that really hot girlfriend? Or do I want to deal with it? And that is the tough question, because of course you'd rather beat your biggest rival 7-0 than win the smallest cup. But
are you sure? Okay, so that's like a no-brainer for you?
Yeah, like for a week of making Liverpool fans feel like shit, is probably worth more than a Carabao Cup. It's probably not worth more than an FA Cup, Europa, or Champions League, or Premier League.
So the line is somewhere between Carabao Cup and FA Cup.
I didn't know I didn't know I had to have an opinion on this until this weekend, Jeff. It was not a future I was preparing myself for. Inner Cities
Fair Cup?
This was the Inner Cities Unfair Cup, if you remember that callback.
Oh man.
So Jeff, you probably saw more of the match than me.
Probably. Did you cut it off at what point then? Did you cut it off?
So I watched. So the first half, I thought it was about 50-50, even up until the goal.
1-0 at halftime, right?
But there was 40 something minutes where it was 0-0.
Okay.
And I want to say you saw minutes where Liverpool was highly dangerous, but then you saw we weren't playing our best. We're playing kind of about the same as the shittiest we have played in recent weeks, but still gotten results playing that shitty. So we were still doing the things that made you think, oh, Rashford's just going to get a goal out of nowhere, or Bruno's going to, I don't know. And then when Liverpool scored in recent weeks, when someone else scores first, it feels like it just pisses off the team. They come back and they win 2-1, or we earn an unlikely draw, or any of those things happen. It didn't feel that way this time. Casemiro kind of didn't look like himself, and reports, who knows if they're true or not, but reports were that he kind of had a little on-field injury in the 8th or 9th minute which I'm not saying that's an excuse because there are no excuses for what I saw part of. But yeah, there was like a lot sort of happening. Like Liverpool had started to play better. And at the time when I have to say, we are literally driving a car that we should have gotten gas 5 exits ago in. I don't think even I don't think even Arsenal fans would say, yeah, United definitely reinforced the proper amount. And like, and for just the number of games we played with no
Yeah.
rest, 3 games a week is like, it's not sustainable. I did not think that the other shoe would drop at Anfield in the same exact game that like Darwin Nunez figured out how to play Premier League football.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I turned it off once it was 2-0 on the other side of halftime. I was like, oh
Oh,
no.
wow. You
Because
you beat the traffic.
well, because I also started getting fucking texts already. And so I decided to do what I think anyone should do if you're watching at home, prioritize your own mental health. If you feel like watching
Yeah.
what feels like a beatdown is about to happen, does the suffering through that beatdown help? Like, do you get an extra fan badge 5 years later for having sat there
Yeah.
and watched a snuff film starring the thing that you love the most?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of weirdly you pulled a fever pitch. Because I mean, actually, in many respects, because like you remember the end of that movie, right? Have you seen the soccer
What
version of that or the Jimmy Fallon version only? Or neither?
I've seen not the Jimmy Fallon version because gross Red Sox, like what a
Yeah.
travesty. But also, like I didn't see that was the Colin Firth film.
I think that's him. I
I
honestly I'm
just
bad
read the
with
book.
actors.
I've only read the book, and I read it a long time ago. So when it comes to like endings, no, I don't recall.
But basically, like it's in a season sort of like this one where Arsenal is like challenging for the league and maybe even in front for a bunch of it. But there's another team that almost everyone deep down thinks is a better team and can't believe are in second place to Arsenal, and that team is Liverpool. But then by the end of the season, I think it's the very last game of the season is Arsenal away at Anfield. And all Liverpool have to do is not lose by 2 goals, and they win the league. And basically he's watching the game and he becomes despondent, and then he just like goes for a walk, and then while he's on the walk he figures out that Arsenal have won, and then he like celebrates as if he had watched it basically.
Yeah, mine sounded a little different than that.
Yeah, yours is
In,
like that except if it ended in like a plane crashing into your childhood home.
Yeah, instead at like the 50th minute, I was just like, "Fuck this," and I didn't go on a walk, but what I did go on was a 5-hour VR kick.
Oh, right, you did tell me that. I was imagining that happening at full time though. So the fact that you were doing that as like 5 more goals, like well done looking into the crystal ball and seeing that that wasn't going to end well.
Well, it didn't hurt that, like, at that point, I could check Reddit and just see that, like, a new highlight clip for each goal would get added, like, 1 minute later. So it's
Yikes.
like, okay, confirmation of what felt but I gotta say, like, United have suffered some sincere beatdowns in the last few years, like in the Ole and Rangnick years, like serious humiliation. Like much of it cost Ole his job.
Hmm.
Like 5-0 at Liverpool. I want to say was it 6-1 at City, and then later on 6-3 at City. Is that right?
You would probably know better than me, but that's all ringing a bell, yes.
Why I walk out of those when it starts getting that like when I see someone walk into my Thanksgiving dinner and start shooting my family, I don't take my seat.
You don't hope for the comeback? You don't, maybe we could turn this Thanksgiving around.
No, I'm like to my cousin, I'm like, "Hey, are you okay?" He's not responding. I'm gonna go. Uh,
If it's okay with you, I'm just gonna box a few things up and get
yeah.
out of here.
I brought this whiskey, but nobody wanted any, so I think I'll just take
I'll
it.
just take. It's not even open. Pretend like I wasn't here.
Um, I don't know where to start because I didn't watch the high like why would I want to watch the Darwin Nunez goals? Like why would I want to see that?
Sure.
I've read a lot and I understand maybe more from like reaction videos like I see you want to talk about Bruno next, so I'll save my comments about that. But like players that had been playing really, really well and not drop their heads once, even though maybe they've had a lot of excuses to like we're
Mm,
exhausted, we're having a fight,
yeah.
constantly. It was this felt like a straw that broke the camel's back kind of situation. So I gotta hope that they can rally for Real Betis tomorrow. Betis,
Batiste, I believe. But yes,
Real Betis, Real Betis.
I hope they're gonna really beat now. I I want to go on the record while because this is clearly a good time for me to like pile on and be a dick. But
If you want
I
to.
I am just not as into score lines as most soccer fans are. You know what I mean? Like when people talk about like that big Brazil defeat to Germany, it's like still such a traumatic incident. Or like the way that a lot of Arsenal fans will talk about the 8-2 drubbing a few years back at Old Trafford. Or, like Arsenal twice in a row. Like we had a 5-2 comeback against Spurs, and then we had another 5-2 the very next time we met them. And like there are certain score lines that live in infamy, and I know them because people talk about them a lot. But like for me, like if you go down by a couple goals, then you have to throw a lot of guys forward to try to score. And then, you know what I mean? Like for me, it's very much worth the risk of losing by 4 or 5 or even 7, really. Like you can, if you could possibly salvage a point, or if you even just like could score some goals and like end the game on a high note. And I think this is like a massively overrated thing culturally within the game. Like I don't understand why the scoreline matters so much. Like
Because
beyond goal difference, it doesn't matter.
we know why. It's about like on one end banter, and on the other end it's like toxic masculinity, right? Like look how badly I humiliated you. Look how tough I am. I know if the scoreline were the opposite, this would not be the narrative that I'm peddling. But
Sure.
like that is what it is. That's what sports is like legal warfare.
Yeah.
It's warfare where not always nobody gets hurt, but like nobody's meant to get hurt.
Yeah. It's meant to be non-lethal. It doesn't always live up to that.
Yeah, so Liverpool just nuked Manchester and they want to dance on our graves, and then
Sure.
all other fans that hate United from decades past are like, "Oh, that grave looks pretty nice. I think I'll dance on it too." Like, and then I'm sitting here like where I'm taking it, even though like I didn't fucking do anything wrong. I prepared. Like I wore the right kit. I went running the day before. What more do you want from me?
You didn't blame yourself for any sort of superstitions or anything? Did you touch the doorknob 3 times and spin around twice before you sat down? And
Well, right before the match, I said to a friend, "Hey, I'll text you in a few hours after we've beaten Liverpool 7-0." And immediately,
you said 7-0.
yeah, I said we'll beat them 7-0, and it'll be humiliating. And I kept sort
Yeah.
of adding details. I said, and Darwin Nunez definitely won't score.
Yeah.
Like,
2 own goals by Darwin Nunez, calling it now.
I don't know, man. It sucks. It like I feel like having this one hurts more. And I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, because it's Liverpool." No, this doesn't hurt more because it's Liverpool. This hurts more because I think this team is better than a 7-0 beating, in the way that last year we weren't better than a 5-0 or a 6-1 or a
Mm,
6-3. Like we earned those results, and our rivals were often not even getting out of second gear to get them. So like this team
hmm.
has progressed so much that I'm just annoyed because this loss, which is a deserved loss, like a lot of people are trying to invalidate the previous 30 fucking matches when really like I don't think you can do that. And I think you were kind of saying that with like oh, it's a loss, but score lines are not
Yeah.
everything to you.
I mean, the crazy thing about it, and not to like pile on, but there used to be at the beginning of that game, you guys were 13 goal difference, like numbers ahead of Liverpool. And then by the end, you were 1 behind them because that's how the math works, which is insanity. But beyond that, beyond the actual goal difference of how it affects the table, like I don't get bothered about it too much. Like and it has happened to Arsenal like a few times in recent years, and it doesn't bother me all that bad. And so I hope that you can just have my opinion instead of yours, because yours would
But
probably be harder to have.
it when let's just say we know my social life is not exactly. You're not going to look at my calendar and go, "Oh, look at all the many events you do and the rich friend life you have." Like I spend so much of my life reading and watching Manchester United centric content,
Yeah.
and then even more time, rest of league, rest of world
Mm,
stuff just to stay on that. So like from like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, even today, it's like all still kind
it's like
of
a hangover still.
unwatchable. It's
Yeah.
unwatchable because it's like it's either people still going after us
Right.
over it, or it's people being defensive over it. I had a performance review at my job yesterday. Somebody makes a comment like, "Oh, I knew you were going to have a good performance review, so I told our boss to speed that up, to actually have it earlier because you needed it." Like
Uh,
people are like talking. People who don't watch Premier League or watch soccer are like
wow.
being like, "Are you okay? I heard 9/11 happened."
they
Like
they have a Google alert set for if Man United get beat by more than 4 goals.
they're like, "Schuyler, your Fitbit said it was worried to all of us."
Your
All
Fitbit
right,
has sent out
so
cries for
so
help
can we just
automatically.
can we run through this gauntlet of other topics related to the game so that we can just get it over with, rip off
Yeah.
the
If
wax?
there's I didn't want to sort of change the subject from your misery too soon, but I will say, like, there was some smart Arsenal person whose name I forgot, probably on Twitter, that had a really interesting question about this, that sort of I didn't even realize I was thinking about it until like they put it completely into words. But it was like, what is your joy to dread ratio with this? Like, the joy of seeing a rival get trounced is funny, but then on the other hand, like, the dread that comes with knowing we have to play away at Anfield in a few weeks. And it looks like this is a team where it never quite made sense for them to be in ninth place. Like, weren't they one of the best teams that had
But
ever been put together, like last season, even?
it
And
it
so,
it did make sense though because they lost the hardworking midfield that got them there. So
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. Please keep going.
I
But
mean, but
like,
you even when, like, even if you're saying this is not as good of a team as it was last year, which I think is absolutely true, like, they never struck me as mid-table, which they were for this, like, a good chunk of this season. And I think now you
does
look and
Chelsea?
I think Chelsea is so disorganized that I could buy that. And like, I think there's a lot of talent on that team, but like, this is different. Like, I don't look at Liverpool as being a dumpster fire in the same way that Chelsea is.
That's yeah.
But I don't know. And long story short, I do worry that they're starting to hit a little bit of a stride right before this is a match that I would have loved to have played like 2 months ago and already gotten the 3 points. And it'll be a really key fixture, because I think we have that either right before, I want to say, we go play City. So that's going to be a tough run of away games in the North against teams with really good players. I mean, Darwin Nunez just himself, if he has the most XG in the league right now. And so, per game, even more than Haaland, but he just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And so, if that is
But
if that's going to change,
we didn't teach him that though. That's what's kind of weird. It's not like, "Oh, now I know where the goal is." Like that's
I
not
don't know. I mean,
that
but there's such a big mental, emotional swing that comes from,
but
like,
we
putting
just
it
beat
together.
Barcelona and won a cup. So like the emotional swing is yeah, but like it's not predictive of future results clearly. Like that I'm living in this chaotic world where like you can't follow a straight line to really know what's going to happen.
But
Do
I
you
do feel like you can follow an upward trajectory in Liverpool's form over the last few months. Like, even like pre to post World Cup, they've been a different
but
team.
you can follow it for us too.
True,
And that
true.
upward they were 2 wins away from a quadruple. So like if anything, us the worst student in the 5th grade last year, like suddenly being first percentile in a lot of ways is like that was a straight line where you're like, oh wow, it's clear that change is happening and that
Right.
they're improving and that they're way better in way ahead of schedule. And then this happens. So like, what can you believe? You just gotta have to watch a game and sit down and go, I have no idea what's happening. Like an old person walking through a Walmart. You need just to like look for signs and hope that someone will help
like
you along the way.
Old person posting on Facebook. Yeah.
Is this Cracker Barrel that I went to last Thursday?
Unsubscribe.
Did you want to talk about
we
Bruno?
should talk about Bruno since we've been saying that we're going to talk about Bruno for a while. I'm assuming that you've seen the video. Well, there's actually been quite a lot of Bruno content going around, and it sounds like you've
all of it's been dispelled, so it's going to be a quick conversation.
All of it has been dispelled.
So there's the referee assistant bit, the linesman bit, and then there's the does Bruno want to get subbed off thing that Gary Neville started, which was not what happened. But
I mean, the Bruno content that I have seen the most of, there is one where the fan outrage before I'd seen the clip, I thought he must have pushed this guy in anger, sort of like to his face in that, like, do you want to start something sort of way? That's what I was imagining. And then when I saw the clip, I'm like, you're really still not allowed to do that.
But the linesman initiates contact. So like you don't want, yes, that is what the entire next day, the day after, the reaction to the reaction was watch the larger clip, the linesman initiates, and yes, Bruno should not do that across the board, but it's not the usual situation where it's player coming to fuck with linesman.
Yeah. And like, if anything, it's doing that weird move that, like, I don't know, like I've done this in a testy moment, I think before, where you're like, you're just walking by someone, but you're also like a little, like it definitely had a little bit of, it had like 1% malice to it, which is probably more than you should be allowed to have with the referee. I'm very surprised. I mean, the thing that every Arsenal fan has been jumping up and down on their chairs about this week has been like, they're investigating Arsenal for their celebrations because the bench came off, which happens like a lot when it's a goal in the 97th minute or whatever.
That's like pointless bureaucracy at this point. Like, who cares?
Right. I mean, it doesn't really matter. But I am sort of surprised. Like, that's the kind of thing where I really don't think they would have been out of line retroactively giving him some sort of punishment.
But like, isn't it weird how like it seems like every match these days has some like, well, there's the match and then there's the post-match litigation.
Yeah. I mean,
part it's like the VAR, it's VAR for matches. It's VAR for whole results. Like, hey, we're not done fucking you yet. Get back here.
Yeah. I mean, and I think part of that is just, there's just a lot more high definition footage of games than there's been in the past. I think in the past, there's a lot of stuff that just flew under the radar. There's way more people spending way more time like editing videos. Like, I mean, even just like you're on social media and people will be like, I put together, like I did some edits. Like, when did that become a noun? Edit. Like, that is a verb there. But anyway, it's just like, there's just a culture of like overanalyzing things and looking at a lot of video. I do think that Bruno is pretty far out of line on that. And then just emotionally, there were moments in it where he was pretty hysterical. And, like the one thing that I can say, and I sort of already said it, is if you're losing by a large margin because you're throwing bodies forward and you're playing very aggressively, I think that is very sort of defensible. It's just a tactic. And sometimes, you know what I mean? It's a high risk, high reward kind of thing. As we'll get to in the Arsenal game later, like, sometimes you do come back from 2-0 down when you play like that. We played with 6 forwards for a lot of that game.
Not against the same caliber of opponent.
It's certainly a different caliber of opponent. But I think that the right move would have been the same either way. What I think is not defensible, like there were moments and Carragher sort of like had this viral clip where he's tearing Bruno apart, and I think correctly where, Bruno's just sort of, he's so exhausted by that game that he's just like hanging out and not getting, you know what I mean? It's like, it's one thing if you get caught going forward because you're desperately trying to score the goal that gets you back in it. If you're just like jogging back and you're like standing in an offside position when your team is on defense kind of thing, like it's hard to defend that. So I do think that, I think he has a lot to answer for. in that game.
I'm not saying that's wrong. I mean, when you were talking earlier about score lines, like you don't 7-0 is the result of 5-0. Does that make any sense? Like some of these players had never been beaten that badly before, and then other ones who were on the team last year thought that they had put that, but thought that they had put that behind them. So it's almost like this shit again. It'd be like your third car accident in a year kind of thing, where you're just like, I get the human reaction to that level of embarrassment.
Yeah.
You'd hope that 1-0 down, they keep their heads together. But like, who's ever come back from like 3-0 down at Anfield? Like, whoever?
Right.
We never have. Not in my adult life. Sorry, dude. I'm like, so does Bruno have flaws, and is one of them being an emotional player? Yes. Do I identify with that myself? Yes. Is it to be a professional footballer, you've got to like never react? Because I feel like I see that sort of bullshit from players all the time, and I feel like United just gets it from the media.
People in everyday life that are 20 years older than him.
People in everyday life, but if we're talking just Premier League, I feel like I see Klopp do shit all the time that I'm like, wow, he should get a fucking ban for that. But because he's Jurgen Klopp, he's passionate. He can do whatever he wants. Like, I honestly think that there is a very, like, you sent me, you wouldn't know this if you're listening, but Jeff texted me this past weekend about, like, we had a conversation where Jeff said something along the lines of, and we need a world where not all referees are from Manchester. And I was like, what? Like, my reaction to Jeff was, Jeff, have you been huffing some like Arsenal brand glue? And then like got into a deeper discussion just about like, oh, well, referees are people who are from a place and therefore there is a bias. Right. Look at who the pundits are.
Yeah. Which I have less of a problem with, because I get that is like Fox News / WWE. Like, these are characters, like, go for it.
But to say, oh, it's Fox News, that's acceptable. Like, Fox News isn't acceptable, Jeff, so the soccer analog shouldn't be acceptable either. But it's like, it's all of these players who hate United, and all it takes is for them to spot one thing, like, ooh, I'm going to fucking go in on Bruno now. Like, I honestly think he, and by extension of being part of this team, like, who's talking about Southampton losing, what was it, 9-0, 9 to something? Like, no one's talking about that. 4 days later, they weren't talking about it.
So if Southampton had just beaten Barcelona over 2 legs and lifted a cup, then I think it would be a much more interesting conversation to have. They just suck. It's more interesting that you guys lost that way.
I genuinely think the conversation for this season starts and ends with the Queen dies and we don't play a match for a fucking month while everyone else goes through their schedule, which is already too many matches for a modern athlete to put themselves through. Then we say, don't worry, guys. We know you missed all semester. We're just going to have you learn everything the day and a half before the final. Like, that's what playing this many matches with not even a single week where there's midweek off. Not a single one. And it goes back to fucking
World Cup as well.
Cup. Yeah. It goes. So they played the World Cup after a month of sit at home because the Queen died, and Manchester feels that deeply. All the London teams should play, though. By all means, all the London teams should play. So like there is truly a competitive disadvantage to having to play that many matches back to back.
True.
Like and no one can say, well, we've had the same shit go of it. Nobody had this bad of a fixture congestion. Name one club. You're making a face, but mathematically, this isn't an opinion piece.
We're pretty close. I mean, we've
you
played
didn't have
like
a month off. You've been knocked out of certain competitions. So there's that.
We were knocked out of the League Cup. So that, I think you guys played an extra 2 or was it 3 games in that, and then you played 2 games in the Europa League that we didn't play. But we had the same problems because there were some London teams that were like weirdly allowed to play, but Arsenal was not one of those. And I think we still have like games in hand on, like, I don't know. We were in the same boat that way.
when we played Newcastle for the Carabao Cup, if you looked at the run-in for both teams, it's like I think we played 11 games in the span that they played 4 or 5 games in.
Yeah.
That's perspective. This is for a cup. This is for like it'd be the I don't know, man. I'm mad because it's just like United sucks now. Look at Bruno, he's a baby. Like when really it's like all things are not necessarily equal, even over the course of a full Premier League season. Different teams have different numbers of games that they have to play. I'm like upset about that. And because when I'm getting it from Liverpool fan friends or just other friends, who needs friends? But like when I'm getting it, all I'm seeing is, well, if the team wasn't fucking exhausted, I'm sure it wouldn't be 7-0. I can say that with total confidence. Are we winning? Probably not. Like I can't make a bold swing of 7 goals like that, but I can say like the 7-0, like the players that are on the field are too good to get beaten by anybody 7-0 because up until that point, I feel like we were competitive with any team in the world. Like any team in the world. Beating Barcelona, who is leading La Liga by a lot, means that. Beating City means that. Like, yeah, we split the season series with you guys. I think that means we're competitive. Like all of that all pointed to we're competitive, but you're seeing signs of fatigue. Game for like the last 5 matches, it's been like Eriksen was gone, and it was like, fuck, we're already tired. Because I feel like you could then counter argument, well, why doesn't Ten Hag rotate more? Because the players he's got to rotate with suck. So like,
yeah, I mean the other one that's kind of a bit of a nuclear grenade to throw in, but you could say that there might have been a tactical starting of children to be done in the League Cup if you're worried about fixture congestion and you're not going to strengthen over the winter break. I mean, I think like I was surprised that we went out quite as early as we did, but like Arteta, who has not rotated the squad much at all in important games, put in like 6 players that we hadn't seen during that cup when we crashed out of the League Cup. And then we also crashed out of the FA Cup as well. So I think that, I don't know. I mean,
we played multiple of those matches since you've been knocked out. So like that by itself is extra matches. But my point was with the month off from the league, it's not that you're playing less league matches than us. We were making them up in less time with these extra matches on top.
Extra,
and each Europa League match, which I know you're still in the Europa League, that's 2 legs each. Like it's just too many fucking matches. You have to have a team of 30 first teamers to like get through all this shit at this point, and it's greed that's at the fucking core of it. So like
it all comes back to the Glazers.
The Glazers have never personally backed any coach with their money. They backed Ten Hag with our credit card in the summer and then didn't back him in the winter when we were in a great position to get even closer to you guys, to City. Like, I don't know, man.
Was that to do with the possible sale at that point? Or what was that?
Or is that a really nice thing that they could say to not spend money right now?
I mean, well, but do you think it's just selfishness, or do you think it was more like pointed selfishness because of something to do with
there's
the
no
sale?
money. There's no money from how poorly they spent the money.
Oh, no levers to be pulled.
The summer was literally, I'm going to buy an engagement ring on a credit card. Ask me how I know what that's like. Jeff, will you? No, I'm like, I feel like I'm mad and I'm upset, but like, what am I supposed to do? Say, you're right, Liverpool fan, we suck. Soccer's over forever. Like, am I supposed to do that? But
that's the thing is, like, I really don't think that you suck. I think that, like, I think you'll go win tomorrow night. You know what I mean? Like, I think that you're like a good team, and this was like one terrible day at the office. And I think like maybe one of the best or most poignant things that I think you've said so far today was like 7-0 happens because of 5-0. There's a point where you sort of, you're not the same team anymore. I mean, you could look at the face of Bruno Fernandes, certainly, but I think many of the players on the field where it's like they were not playing their game from like the 70th minute on because of the way that the game was going. And even if you were going to play a second leg of that against Liverpool right now, it probably wouldn't be 7-0 because they've
Well, we did play a
managed to
second
pull
leg
their
of
heads
that.
out of their ass.
We did play a second leg of that in the beginning of the season, and it was our first not shocking win of the season.
Right. You both, yeah, it was kind of an odd, like, I felt like with both, well, no, that's not true.
But
I was going to
we
say that
played them in
you
year
both
whatever
won when
of
you weren't supposed
Klopp.
to.
But we played them in year X of Klopp and week X of Ten Hag. So,
Yeah.
we beat them when Ten Hag had just basically put all his little knickknacks and tchotchkes on his desk.
Yeah. And it was
So,
also, I feel like when you guys beat them the first time, we didn't know that they weren't that good yet. So, like, I feel like at the time, it kind of felt like, oh, this is like a victory against the top 2 or 3 teams. And then later it
but
was like, oh, maybe they just suck. But then
are they
they're such a weird
not
team to
good?
quantify.
Are they not good, or is this just what happens when you have to gegenpress for like 6 straight years and the number of fixtures you play each year goes up and up and up? Like, I feel like by getting more football, we're getting less quality football over the course of a year.
Well, it is a double whammy, like you alluded to, where it's like not only have the tactics become more demanding on players, but so has the schedule. So you're playing more games that are all harder. I don't know. I think we're both going to see it because we might not be playing Klopp ball exactly, but we're all in that same sort of family of modern pressing, passing kind of football that I think loosely you could call it. Definitely has some gegenpressing influence to it. So I don't know. We'll see if we run the legs off of all the players that we love.
I feel like we've run the legs off of this topic, hopefully forever on this podcast. So
How
Jeff,
about
go
some
ahead.
joyous news, Schuyler? Before we get into the joyous news that came from the men's game, because that was arguably
What joyous news?
On Sunday, my daughter Ava and I went and attended the Conti Cup final, the Women's League Cup final.
Named after known feminist Antonio Conte?
yes, he is a massive supporter of women's. He dropped a $100 bill accidentally, and it turned out that he was the largest sponsor of women's football in England, and so they named the cup after him. That's kind of a sad
Is this
one.
a joke that you've heard from someone else because you
Nope.
had that ready to go?
No, I didn't. Just very, very good on.
Just very funny.
Extemporaneous, yeah.
I guess it's easier to be funny when you haven't just watched the Shawshank Redemption of football matches.
I think it was worse than the Shawshank Redemption.
Schindler's List of goal scorers.
Even Human Centipede was only like a 3-0 if you like.
oh, that was hickory dickory dock.
Oh.
That was just because my O sounded like Dice Clay. I went with it.
You just went with it. It was kind of like that though, where it was just like a pointlessly mean joke, a la Andrew Dice Clay. But yeah, speaking of not that, Arsenal. I'll put my cards on the table. I think you know this, that I do not follow the Women's Premier League very closely, although I'd like to follow it more, and especially wanting to go to games with kids, especially kids who are female. There's something nice about seeing that. And it's also I was able to go to a cup final for $12.50 total between me and my daughter. So it's just a very nice and lovely, affordable day out. But I was kind of brushing up on my Arsenal women's football team before we got there. And I listened to the Arscast Women's podcast. And the very first line they said, well, of course, no Arsenal fan is looking forward to this cup final, and it will almost surely be a dreadful result for the club, but we have somehow stumbled into it. And basically all of our best players, Medina and Meter, they were gone. And I think I just said one of their names wrong, but that shows you what a big fan I am. Anyway, we were supposed to lose by a lot. Chelsea came out, scored in the 3rd minute. It wasn't looking good. It was a very cold and cloudy and dreary day, and I thought that I was going to turn my child against sports. And then Arsenal came back and scored 3 in a row, and it was amazing. And then I ended up having dinner in a really nice Jamaican restaurant instead of waiting outside for the train. And it was a lovely day. And congratulations to the Arsenal women's team for lifting a cup, even in a pretty rough time for the club, I think, right now.
What was the total outlay for going to a women's Premier League match? The cost?
like in terms of the tickets, it was £12.50, which is pretty great. But it was a really great atmosphere. They had it down at Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace's stadium, and they sold it out. So it was 19,100 people in attendance. And the Arsenal, I ended up meeting some people there that were from the Arsenal women's singing group, and they like it was pretty like it was. I'd say I've been to men's games at the Emirates that weren't as well supported. Like not maybe not the really big ones, but like I've definitely. It was a packed house. The people knew the players, and it was cool for me to see because that was the first game that I had attended in person, and like you realize that it's not just a copy and paste from the men's team over to the women's team. There's like individual songs for the women that I hadn't heard before and things like that. So it was very cool. I had a great time. And with that said, it was coming on.
Is there still a women's song that's like, why don't City fuck off home at the, like, I feel like there's still got to be some of that like explicitness. It can't be like.
I mean, yes and no. It's a way different crowd. I mean, not that they're like scared to say curse words or something, but it's like I noticed maybe it's just an accessibility issue, but like way more families there, way more women, way more queer people there, way more disabled people. It was like it felt like there were a lot of people that were maybe not your typical like I'm going to go drop like 75 pounds to get through the gate sort of people were able to come, which was cool too. Like a lot of younger people. And then interestingly, like a lot of like really like hardcore, like handicap looking, like old school, old men, British football fans were there. And like on some level, I think it tracks with them because like it's cheap. They don't roll around and grab their ankles every 5 minutes. Like the referees were letting crazy stuff go during that game. Like, I mean, it was a brutal game. And I think in a weird way, I think it's more old school football than the product on the men's side right now. And so it had like a really interesting constellation of fans that were there. I enjoyed it. I'll definitely be back.
That feels to me like interesting that like it feels like inclusion is part of the DNA of it instead of something that the league is posthumously trying to drape over it, like in the men's game where they're like, let's kick racism out of football. We're gonna do this thing because there's a lot of racism in football. We need to kick that.
Yeah, because we already let in racism and we really regret it.
It's like, all right, Manchester United being sold to these people who don't want any of you to be alive, much less to be attending matches. Like, it's interesting to, like, you don't hear about that kind of thing in the women's game, I guess, because it comes from a place of altruism just for it to even exist. Like, women have to fight for those opportunities and to fight for them to be even paying opportunities. So, like, I do get that. But my comment wasn't about, like, denigrating fans or anything. It was more like, I just want there to be, like, inter-team fan tribalism. Like
what does that mean?
Meaning, like, I want an Arsenal fan to hate Chelsea or Spurs. They don't need to say like disparaging words that are slurs, like in order to say fuck you, City, fuck, like, you get what I was. That's what I think. There are songs and we definitely that are just like nursery rhymes that have swear words where it's just about we don't like this other team. It's not about we don't like this class of people.
Oh yeah, that was definitely alive and well there. They were singing the classics.
Okay, so the family atmosphere is not getting in the way. I'm sorry, I could have asked this more directly, but like that's what I was trying to get to. Is the atmosphere like feel PG or just
it's
more
probably
like
a little bit more like the one thing I noticed, like, I don't know if this is totally just my projecting onto this, but like when we have attended Premier League games together, and pretty much every time I go, there's always a certain edge to the air. Like, you always kind of feel like I could turn around and see someone get punched in the face. You know what I mean? Like, there's always like that certain machismo. Like,
you can feel it in the air tonight.
Yeah, like you could feel it in the air. Like a drum solo could break out at any time. And I didn't. It did feel a little bit less like that would happen. And even like, I don't know. Like one of the things that I dislike about some supporters of Arsenal is, like when they talk about Spurs, like, there are certain, like epithets that get thrown in that I'm like, we don't need that. And like, definitely didn't hear any of that there. But like, you
It's
know,
the
plenty of
anti-Semitic,
fuck off, you
anti-Semitic
know.
stuff.
Yeah, there's a which I never
We can
actually.
call it what it is.
Sure, yeah. No, it's anti-Semitic. I was trying to just avoid. I didn't want to have to actually like say the words themselves. So I was trying to
Is
allude to
this
them, but yeah.
is this maybe like the first episode of the podcast your daughters will listen to because we've got a shout out, and then I'm like, Jeff, swear, say swears,
Say it.
fucking
Say
swear.
it. What's the slur? What is it?
Just write it down and show it to me and our Twitch viewer.
Yeah, yeah.
The three of us will keep
One
the
Twitch
secret.
viewer. You just see it goes beep, down to 0. No, thank you.
You get a message in the chat that's like it's not the word I thought it would be.
Yep. But yeah,
All right,
speaking
so
of other happy things that'll be sure to cheer you up,
wait,
Schuyler.
did you watch this match or is this the last match of Jeff Can't Watch Gate?
No, it's not the last one. So there should be several more that I can't watch. And so I
But
didn't.
there was 3 in a row, I thought.
I think there was 5 out of 6. Although I have found some other workarounds that I'm gonna try. And
Hot air
I'll let
balloon?
you know how they
Hot air
work.
balloon over stadium?
Yeah, no, that would work. The
They can't
Chinese method.
Can they stop you from hot air ballooning over the stadium? I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure that they are allowed to make rules and enforce them about their airspace in this country. I think they are allowed to do that.
Wait, does the Emirates or Old Trafford or any of these places, do they have like a vertical sovereignty where like if a spaceship goes over their stadium,
Is it a no-fly zone?
yeah, they can shoot it down if it's like a Blackburn Rovers satellite or something?
It's a good question. I mean, I wonder if they don't have enough influence with like the local government to get them to make, because there's a bunch of like places you're not allowed to fly drones. So it's a good question.
Like in front of someone that you're attracted to?
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely aren't allowed to do that.
Hey, this is my drone. Do you want to go on a date?
I haven't noticed any anti-aircraft guns. I know there's like some ceremonial cannons around the Arsenal ground, but I don't think they could shoot anything down. I don't know.
And that's canon.
That's canon. Oh man.
But I watched this match because I did not see it going the way that it went. Much like the Liverpool match. Because I think, were you down 2-0 at one point?
Yes, we were.
I thought that was a capitulation happening. What I didn't see happening was 7+ minutes of stoppage time.
It like did
World Cup level.
It did get to a bit of arty time, and interesting too, because I mean, we scored. I think it was in the 98th minute technically, because like as soon as you've ticked 1 second, like when it's 97:01, that's the 98th minute, right? And I think that's when the goal was scored. And it was interesting because they had only given 6 minutes of stoppage time. And so like there had been sort of a half chance right before that. And I kind of like when you watch it, it feels like the whistle's going to blow and then it doesn't. And then Nelson's like, fuck it, weak foot, best shot in the history of the stadium, like limbs.
All right, I'm going to reenact a real text message conversation between Jeff and I. Ready? There we go. Can you hear that?
Yes.
That's Jeff texting me. All the refs are from Manchester. None of them like Arsenal. Why did they do this to me? And then like minutes later, a ref's like, just keep playing till Arsenal score. And that's what they did. And that's what happened. And that's 3 points. And there's no further conversation about it. But I wanted to point it out to Jeff in real time on a live podcast and a recorded podcast that it looks like the Manchester refs let you have that one.
To be fair, they also didn't. There were 5 VAR incidents for handballs in the box that they decided none of those should be penalties. Like, I was surprised that they didn't blow the whistle earlier, but I also don't think they were wrong because, like, in stoppage time, it's not like Bournemouth was like rolling the ball out quickly and being like, let's play. You know what I mean? So there probably was about that much stoppage time and stoppage time. So I don't know.
We could debate how stoppage time gets calculated and the science that goes behind it of 6 minutes.
Yeah. Have a lot of
I'm licking my finger and holding it up for the listener.
Yeah, let's definitely not have any sort of transparency when we do the stoppage time. That's a key part of this process because it's about feelings, as we know.
It's like a Premier League referee's MySpace. It's like song I'm listening to, dashboard confessional vindicated. Mood I'm in, angsty, stoppage time 8. Like
Yeah,
it's like how I feel today on my Zanga.
100%.
No, I mean Arsenal showed great spirit to fight back from 2-0 down to win 3-2. Especially considering when like it felt like a tie was the most likely thing that was going to happen once it hit stoppage time. Even when 7 minutes went up, you're like,
Yeah,
I don't know. Bournemouth probably deserved to get a point out of this from the first half. But let's just say the Plinko board breaking Arsenal's way continues, which it feels
yeah.
like has been the story of the season. It's happened. I can't deny that it's happened.
That's one of those things, people talk about like, oh, well, you got to win close games if you want to win the league, which is a little bit like
No, you
saying
got to
if you
win
want,
games.
well, that too, but it's like, it's a little bit like saying if you want water to be on the ground, you have to make sure that the water is puddle shaped. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, that is just the nature of it being on the ground. The water has to be puddle shaped. Otherwise, it's not on the ground.
That
Like,
saying means champions often have a touch of the Irish when they
sure.
win a league, unless they're City.
But my thing is that, like, you look at the margins, even when you run away with the league, you win by what, 7, 8 points. And, like,
That's a bad
that,
week away from not winning the league.
yeah, exactly. Like 7, 8 points is, you can easily, those kinds of things are easily, how many games even a really great team will have that are decided on a razor's edge of, was that a penalty or not? Was that a handball or not? Was that over the line or not? Like there's a million of those sorts of things. Or even just like, uh, when Reese Nelson kicks it, when our backup kicks it with his weak foot, when 15 defenders in front of him for an XG of 0.000001, and it happens to go in the corner, it's like,
What was the XG for that shot? Did you actually look it up?
I
I'm sure
think
it's
it
not
was
that
actually,
small.
I think it was 0.03.
So negligible. That is
Like,
negligible.
it's pretty, I mean, it's
When
pretty small.
a penalty kick is what, like 0.7?
A penalty I thought was like 0.9,
No, because you missed
like
them
10%.
too. Look
Well,
it up. What is
um,
a PK in XG? I'm just gonna get an answer right now. This is the Google Pod. All right, keep
Jamie,
talking while I look it
I'm
up.
gonna do. Jamie, can you Google how many? That's
All right, penalty kick 0.79. So split the
okay.
difference.
Right between us, maybe
But
a
I
little
mean,
bit
I
to you.
did get the digit right. I did get the 7
Yeah, but
correct.
like if it was calculated kind of like minutes, then as soon as you click over, then it's kind of like on the 80th.
Schuyler, oh, the refs don't like Arsenal,
I
Schuyler. They're
do
over
think that it goes
Manchester.
beyond coincidence that like everyone in England lives in London, and there are no refs from London. Like that is a
Why isn't
strange
there a
coincidence.
London School of the Dark Arts, like a hog refs?
Hog refs.
Welcome to
I
Hog
really
Refs, Harry.
there's
You're
there's
a linesman.
no, I mean, was it you that was saying, shouldn't we be able to fix the refereeing problem with like a decent reality show where we just have a bunch of people come in and compete over it?
Who's a good ref? The end. Can you
Yeah,
run? Can you see? Do you know things?
yeah. Have you accepted any like large stacks of bills in an envelope from someone?
Who's your favorite club? Oh, Tranmere Rovers. Okay, you can officially officiate in the Premier League then, because they'll never be there. There's no bias.
I don't know if that was a specific allusion to
What if
what's
you
his name?
import? All right. This is
All right.
a crazy idea. Every top flight league in the world has to do a refereeing exchange program where you basically are only having referees who were born outside of the country. That doesn't fix it perfectly, but
Yeah.
that will eliminate local allegiances and sort of what you're talking about, like regional sourcing issues. Like all the referees for the Premier League will be from Germany and Brazil and Canada and
Yeah.
Nigeria.
I mean, the Premier League still might legitimately have a problem with that in the sense that it's followed worldwide,
And it's all old white guys?
But I also, yeah, that's an interesting facet there too. But I do think that, like, at the very minimum, couldn't you kill two birds with one stone by going around flashing your giant stacks of cash that the Premier League has and no one else has, and just get the best ref from every country
Right.
in the world? And then, so now, not only have you brought in a bunch of quality referees, they may be less biased too, because, like, some of them probably, I mean, honestly, like, most people, like, I think the Premier League is very popular in Asia and Africa, from what I understand, and to a certain extent, like, in North America now and Australia. But, like, I think in South America, like, they're really into La Liga, because that's where all the, like, La Liga, and then also even the Italian league, because that's where all the sort of connections have been between, there's so many people that have dual passports that way, or even just the language connections, and, like, that's where a lot of guys go to play. So actually do think they're probably sitting on a gold mine of referees that they just haven't tapped into, and they should.
Jeff, what do you think at present
Yeah.
Premier League referees get paid? This is listed per match.
Oh, I bet you it is so ridiculously low, because salaries in the UK are way lower than you would expect. And
Right.
then also the referees are not very well valued. I bet you it's £850 a match.
It's not a bad guess. So Premier League referees in 2020, 2021, this is what the article's from. I don't have a more recent one.
Yeah.
Were paid £1,150 per match that they officiate. I mean, how many matches? I think you probably
But they can't
couldn't.
do more than one a day, do they?
No, but there's like 20 referees, right?
Are they
So
working Saturday and Sunday then? Maybe.
I don't know, but let's
I
say
don't think so.
they're paid well. They're paid better than like an American teacher, obviously. But like when the players on the field are making 15 million a year,
Yeah.
or like when Ronaldo's pulling down $500,000 a week.
I mean, just look at the economics of that, though. Like how much money is gambled on the game every week? Like, the referee's salary needs to be a percentage of that to
Well,
have any reasonable chance of keeping stuff out of that,
VAR exists because we want precision, but then we have hugely flawed people who have not changed at all
Yeah.
behind the computer. So like let's say let's just fuck off this per match pay thing, but like I think if instead of paying, let's say, a top flight referee 200 grand a season, and they're only gonna, again, they're technically athletes, they need to be able to keep up with the run of play.
Right.
So like you can't this isn't a job you should be able to do until you're 70. This is a job where you should be done by like 55.
Sure.
And so you've got, after you train, let's say you've got 25 years of doing it, maybe 20 years of doing it at
Yeah.
most. You need to earn sort of enough. So like I think they should be paying them double, triple that, but not
Yeah.
paying bad referees that. What if the whole system was like, here's your base salary, it's what it is now.
Incentivized.
Yes, you get incentivized by the review of your refereeing performance, and if you're an awesome referee, you get paid a ton. Like you
Yeah.
get paid like much lower level player money, which would still be a lot. And then you could also take money and just create us. I don't know if PGMOL has a school, but they don't have a Harvard. If
Yeah. They have a community college, apparently.
So this was about Arsenal winning again, and we've talked about the refs multiple times during this episode. So I was just, nice to put a pin in that. Do you have anything else you want to say about your continued march to the title? Are you done yet? Are you over it?
I don't know. I think it's still on such a knife's edge, because every sort of like underlying statistic I look at says Arsenal and City are far and away the best teams in the league, but City's a bit better. But Arsenal have had the rub of the green for some reason this season, and we happen to be 5 points ahead of them. And so every sign points to this one coming down to the final minutes of the season. My heart rate is going to be elevated for months at a time now. Pray for, check in with your Arsenal fans. I think the City fans, I think they're pretty used to it now. They've won 4 out of the last 5. I don't think it means quite the same amount to them, but yeah, it's gonna be a crazy season, and we have like we pulled off that crazy win that involved the Emmy Martinez own goal off his head. You know what I
Not
mean?
lucky, not lucky at all.
That was like what, 2 weeks ago? You know what I mean? It's like we've had a bunch of these things break our way where I think in other seasons they didn't, and we also happen to be a pretty good team, and so I don't know. I mean, we have some key injuries right now, but we also have Jesus back in training today.
Wait, Jesus will rise again?
Jesus has risen. Share the good news, my friend.
It was supposed to be 3 days later. I feel like you've been waiting for half a season.
Yeah, ye of little faith. No, we have. So I don't know. I think that we will be in it till pretty close to the end. But I think it's pretty much a coin toss based on how I see it. So I don't know. That's better than we've had for a long time. I keep trying to remind myself that the goal for this season was top 4. So we'll see if we make it.
And the goal for us this season was top 4 in a cup, and I'm sitting here like just chewing on bad feelings. So yeah, so our next topic is just whatever. Because honestly, it's weird. Like, can I give you another not soccer metaphor for how I feel at this moment?
Yes.
Imagine, go back to your time machine to before you were married to your lovely wife and you had your lovely family, and you were someone who would go out on a date with someone.
Back when I still had my time machine before I was married.
Back when you had that time machine, before you sold it to pay for the family that you got. But like you're dating someone in the early days, like it's a little uncertain in the beginning as you get to know each other. You start having a good time. You see each other more and more and more. You're like, oh, I could actually see this kind of going somewhere, and like not necessarily with any certainty, but like I could imagine it. I'm seeing all the right elements. And then that person, like, I don't know, gets wasted and like makes out with someone else at a bar, or like that person suddenly reveals a huge skeleton in their closet that you're like, oh my God, I wish I had known this like earlier in the Premier League season. So where I'm at right now is things were a little uncertain beginning of the year. This team was a bunch of ass clowns last year. They were the laughing stock of the league, even though they finished 6th. It was like felt more like 15th.
Yeah.
And then we were hopeful for this new coach. He says all the right things, but like who knows? This could take years. Then things are good. Oh, we're having a little fun together. We've won a couple of matches. Suddenly we're like slowly crawling out of the basement of the league table. Oh, we're on the edge of the top 4. We're in the top 4. We're in 3rd. We are inches away from 2nd. We beat Barcelona, we lose to Arsenal. Like there are some hiccups, and then all of a sudden, like I just don't know how to feel because I can't think of any season in the 20 years I've been a United fan. Like I can't think of any season that really feels like this one, where it's like a very Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
But the Jekyll is like some good Jekyll. Some like S-class Jekyll. But then that Hyde is like, it's Hyde. Like it's not Jekyll and Jekyll.
Yeah. You sound like you also don't
like
know whether Hyde or Jekyll was the good one, the way that you're trying to pitch this metaphor to me.
Elaine, he was a Jekyll.
I actually don't
you
know
which Jekyll one is Jekyll, which. Jerry.
Well, never heckle a Jekyll.
Don't heckle a Jekyll. Could I heckle that Jekyll a Speckle? I mean, how would you feel if you were me? I know the Arsenal to United empathy is a difficult conversion system, but like as my friend Jeff, who has slept on my couch, how would you feel about like this? Like there was like we had those early losses, which feel like weren't indicative of this team in its final form. It was very much like getting into an accident during your DMV driver's test. Yeah. Where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing yet. This shouldn't count.
Right. Yeah, even like, I put the Liverpool loss is like a very different kind of loss than like the loss to Arsenal.
It feels like cheating. It feels like cheating.
Yeah, like I think on some level the Arsenal one is like, well, we're a good team. We've beaten them before. But also, they're a good team, and it's an away game for United. So, like, we'll see how it goes. Like, we got a chance, but it might not go the right way. And it was a closest game. Whereas, like, I think this one probably shows how much more there is to be done. And I think it probably also, like, when you talked about Casemiro being hurt, it's like,
So dependent.
we are a team that has Arsenal are a team that I think has 13 good players on it. You guys are a team that I think have 11 good players on it. City is a team that has 30 good players on it. So there's that. And I think this is the part of the season where some of that shows. And so I think if I were you, I would still be like but a lot of this comes down to me, and I wouldn't overemphasize that 7-0 if it were me, because I think that those are overemphasized in general. And so I think for me, I would just look at it and say, well, yeah, that sucked really bad. But I think you guys are still a very good team, and I think you're on the upswing, and I think Ten Hag is a good coach, and I think you have good young players, and yeah.
I feel like your estimate of how many good players United has is a bit influenced by recency bias with that one match, because otherwise you could argue we were almost doing no wrong for a while.
Yeah.
Like, even losing to you away, league leaders in the best league in the world, like, it's going to be a tough match.
Yeah.
Going to be a tough match.
Right.
The Villa one a few months ago where we randomly lost to them 3-1 for, like, almost no reason. It was what's-his-face's first match.
I was going to say, was that Unai Emery's first match?
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, maybe they're going to be a team now.
That new manager bounce, that was perfectly timed. Maybe you could explain that by that. But this, I don't know, man. Whatever is kind of like this team kind of needs to earn back the exuberance I had felt up until today.
Wow.
All right, want to play a game?
Yeah, I do.
All right, this game. I know our point system has been fucked since we started, and I don't remember what our score is.
I think the top score now is either 6 or 7, and it was you. And I haven't come.
We only played 2 games? Like one of each? I thought we'd played multiples. Because you made me do one that was like age, and then you made me do another one, at least.
Yeah. Age was the good one. I remember at least
the 21st day of November?
Maybe 3 games. And I remember Guy Fawkes Day.
Then maybe we're not really playing. Maybe we're not really playing for total score. Then maybe it's just like an exercise to fill airtime.
No, this matters.
No, we play these games on the phone all the time. All right, this game is called Don't Heckle a Jekyll. No, this game is called Best and Worst Ever, and it's inspired by the 7-0 humiliation.
Best and worst losses. I should have been Googling frantically. I should have figured it out.
Do not Google, Jeff. Cheating will ruin this. All right. So, but here's how it's going to work.
Integrity of a pub quiz.
Here's how it's going to work. I'm pretty sure you can have a good guess on Arsenal's best and worst ever, being an Arsenal fan. But you are going to, we're one at a time, going to say all of the teams in the top flight, and you're going to guess against who and the score. You don't have to guess the year, because I feel like that's asking too much. But like, I think you should be able to say like, oh, it's well, think about it. It's best and worst ever, best win and worst ever defeat. They're going to be high scoring matches every time, so you already kind of know that.
Yeah.
You're going to have a guess if it's like, I don't know. We're just going
to. I'm going 0 for 20, by the way.
No, you're not. All right, so let's start with the A's. Arsenal. So what's the best ever result?
Our best ever result. Best ever, like going back to 1886 or a Premier League era.
It looks like it's Premier League. So it's all going to be like
90
as of the 90s.
On or whatever.
Hold on, I'm quickly scanning. It's looking like I'm not seeing anything before 95 from anybody.
Okay, cool.
So I just gave you even more information. I'm making this very hard game much easier.
I am still getting nothing right. I'm gonna say, man.
So scoreline. So guess the scoreline. That's easy because you can just sort of pull a number.
And the best result would be not necessarily how many goals we scored, but the margin, right?
Margin.
Yeah.
But it's often going to be a high goal scoring number.
Sure. Man,
So
I'm
you're
like a
first
lot
you're
of the
guessing
legendary ones don't sound that crazy. Like I must be missing one. I'm thinking there's one where we had a 4-0 against Liverpool it was the Arshavin one, but I feel like there should be more than that.
be that your final answer.
Yes, because this will take too long if I hem and haw.
7-0 against two opponents, one in 2005, one in 2006. 7-0 versus Everton and a 7-0 versus Middlesbrough.
Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough.
All right, so that was the best result. Worst
Worst will
result.
be that day that everybody would hate to be an Arsenal fan, right?
It says so much about Arsenal fans that you would not know either of the two 7-0 victories, but you would have burned into your mind the 8-2 loss. Also, I mean, I guess it just proves that whole point about like not them with Liverpool beating us. Like you remember it probably because it's United. If it was Derby or Leicester or a third club that I could name right now,
Sure.
you probably would care a little less about it, I guess. But all right, so you got 1 point.
Boom. I'm glad that I haven't been skunked, but I think that might legitimately be my last point.
All right, I'm going to give you a point if you just guess the scoreline right. Okay, the team,
Yes.
the team is bonus, so you just have to guess a number. What number am I thinking?
Yeah. The category is numbers, and any number will get you. Unbeknownst to you, V is a number.
All right, Aston Villa, best ever result.
5-1 against Birmingham.
Kind of close. 7-0.
7-0.
7-1 versus Wimbledon in 1995.
Okay.
Worst result.
Oh man, they probably had some real doozies over the years. I'm gonna say 8-1 against Chelsea.
8-0 against Chelsea.
No! Oh, it was so close.
Jesus off the crossbar. Oh, that's claimed by the keeper. Sorry, Jeff. That was. I really wanted you to get that one. I heard you saying 8, and I was like, can he do it?
No, he can't.
All right, Bournemouth.
Ooh, they've even been trounced a bit this year. I think we beat them 5-0, I want to say, this year. I would say 6-0 to the Arsenal.
6-1. You just don't think that any of these teams can score, do you? Against Hull in 2016. And then worst result.
We're
just in the B's now, so I'm going to speed this up.
Yeah. 5-1 to Fulham.
Bournemouth's worst result is 9-0 against Liverpool months ago.
I was going to say, that's this year. I should have got that. I was trying to speed up. I actually knew that one. I knew they had been beaten 9-0 this year. God damn it. That was one of the only ones I was going to get.
Brentford, best result.
Brentford, best result. Man,
in the Premier League.
And in the Premier League, this is going back like not that long. 3-0 against us?
4-0 against United.
Oh, shit. That was also like a month ago.
2 weeks before that, Bournemouth 9-0 against Liverpool. And then what is their worst result? Again, Premier League.
Worst result, Brentford. No idea. 5-2 to Man City.
5-1 versus Newcastle or 4-0 versus Aston Villa.
Okay.
Tied for both options there. All right, let's keep going. Brighton and Hove Albion. Again, not a ton of Premier League experience, but what's their best result and their worst result?
Best result, 4-0 against Wigan.
I'm going to give it to you because the answer is 4-0. And the two options are United and West Ham.
Oh.
United was in May of last year, and this is the end of the Ralph Rangnick era.
Okay.
And then 4-0 against West Ham 4 days ago.
To speed this up, how about I just guess every team's worst one, and then you
Is
tell
this
me the other one?
stupid? If it's just guess a
No,
number.
this would have been a good game for me to come up with for you because you know more of this stuff and you would get it. But I'm just a dummy, so.
I'm better at the matches that involve suffering, I think. All right, Chelsea. What is Chelsea's best result and worst result?
Chelsea's probably got some big ones in there. I'm gonna say they have one against us. I think maybe like 6-0 against Arsenal. Jeez,
This is for best.
for their best result, yeah.
They have 2 8-0s, one versus Wigan and one versus Villa.
Okay.
And then their worst result.
7-1 versus Spurs.
Same differential, 6-0 versus City in 2019.
Okay.
That
was also recent. Wow.
Mauricio Sarri was managing them then, and that was a sorry scoreline for sure. Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace.
Ooh.
Butt scratcher.
5-0 to Chelsea.
I'm going to give it to you, Jeff. 5-0 to Leicester City in 2018. So you've got 3 points, or is it 4 points?
I should have 1. And their worst.
Well, because you got the 8-0. I feel like you've got.
I think I do have
4
points,
points,
actually, right? Yeah.
All right. So their worst score
is 6-0 against United.
7-0 against Liverpool in 2020. I don't know what combination of accents that was. Everton.
Is this therapeutic for you at all to realize how quickly other people will forget them?
Every team has gotten dicked by a similar score line that wasn't as good of a team as Liverpool sometimes.
Like the Chelsea one that you just literally less than a year later, they lifted the Champions League trophy.
And then Sarri was fired. Or no, that was Tuchel. Tuchel took over.
Wasn't yeah, I was gonna say Sarri was fired, then Tuchel took over, won the Champions League, and then
he was fired.
Yeah.
Everton.
They've had some doozies. Oh, I should remember these from earlier. Oh gosh, you already told me this one, didn't you? 7-0 to Arsenal.
All right, you get 2 points for one thing then. So is that 5 or 6 points?
5, right?
These points are like whose line is it anywhere? Whose line is it anywhere?
Yeah.
Whose line is it anyway? Points
every
where
British
it's
quiz shows points.
It's like 7 points or 1 billion points.
Then they lost.
You didn't say their best result.
Their best result would have been 8-0 against Stoke.
7-1 versus Southampton, where they beat them in 96, and 7-1 versus Sunderland in 2007. Fulham. Fulham-America.
Fulham. I'm going to go Fulham on this and say 8-0 to Manchester United.
6-0 against Norwich in 2005 and 6-0
Oh, this is their good result.
Yeah, we always do best first because alphabetically best comes before worst.
Oh. And then the other side of that, I'll say 5-0 against United.
6-0 defeat to Hull. It's hard to predict sometimes.
By the Tigers.
But also Fulham this year is maybe the best Fulham since Clint Dempsey.
Yeah, they are a good team.
You might even say that they are a better team than Dempsey's team. Leeds.
7-0 against Blackburn Rovers.
So this is their best result?
Yes.
6-1 versus Bradford City and a 6-1 versus Charlton Athletic.
Bradford City was in the Premier League?
In 2001, roughly around the time I became aware of the Premier League, this happened.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I was not aware yet. That's crazy.
Guessed.
They're in League 4 or whatever now.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
Whenever heritage clubs fall that far down, it kind of sucks. So, Leeds' worst result.
This is like a United thing, right? Like 6-1 against United.
7-0 to City 2 years ago.
Okay.
Leicester City.
4-0 against Norwich.
They beat Southampton 9-0 in 2019.
Wow.
9-0.
9-9-9.
And their worst result.
6-0 against City.
I'm just going to yell out a team name. You say 2 numbers.
Okay.
Liverpool.
5-1.
Well, they just beat United by more goals than that.
Oh, sorry. You're moving on to Liverpool. I thought you were doing that for the last one. 7-0 Liverpool. They've probably done better than that, though, haven't they?
9-0 versus Bournemouth
Wow.
in 2022 last summer. And worst result.
Oh, that was another one I should have gotten because you already told me. And then worst result would be 4-0 against Arsenal?
6-1 to Stoke City in 2015 and 7-2 to Villa in 2020.
Wow. Weird
So
team.
that same Liverpool team conceded 7 goals to Villa about 2.5 years ago. 3 years ago.
Okay.
Man City, best result.
9-0 against the team you told me before.
8-0 versus Watford in 2019.
Damn it.
Worst result. This is
6-0.
8-1 versus Middlesbrough in 2008. Just to show you, kids, if you get that oil money, look what it can do for you.
Let it wash over. That'll wash that 7-0 right out of your hair, Schuyler.
This is like from South Pacific. I'm gonna wash that man right out of my hair and send him on his way. It's like some woman who's like doing her conditioning right next to a naval ship or some shit.
Oh, wow.
I'm old. All right, Manchester United. You're never gonna guess this.
7-0.
Yeah, it was our worst ever result. It really sucked. It hurt real
Wow,
bad.
really?
They've already got a paragraph about it on this fucking website.
Damn.
But what was our best result, Jeff? Give us some juice for that.
8-2.
9-0 versus Ipswich in 95.
Oh, wow.
Which I want to say that was like a York Cole like mega thing, unless maybe was one of them not on the club yet in 95. I think that one of them scored 5 goals, maybe. And then we also 9-0 Southampton in 2021, which again, no one fucking gave a shit about a month later. Like it was like it never really happened. I couldn't even tell you who the manager was for Southampton.
Good point.
It might have been like Pochettino. No, not in 2021. That's too late. Okay. Newcastle. This is taking way longer than I thought it would. I'm so sorry.
8-0.
Yes. Ding. 6.
Boom.
Is it 6 points
That's
that you got?
6. Ooh, I'm on a razor's edge here.
Newcastle's worst result.
Also 8-0.
6-0 to United in 2008 and 6-0 to Liverpool in 2013. Again, no one cares about that. Nottingham Forest.
Ooh, they got kicked around a bit this year. Premier League, though. They haven't been in the Premier League that much. 5-0?
7-1 versus Sheffield Wednesday in 95. I fucked it up. I already told you one of the numbers for worst.
7-1.
7-0 to Blackburn in 95, and also an 8-1 to Manchester United in 99, the treble year. Southampton.
9-0 for worst.
8-0 versus Sunderland.
9-0 for worst.
9-0 for, okay, then you get a point because they got 2 9-0s against Leicester and United. We've talked about both, so you have 7 points. Spurs. You should know this, Jeff. Don't you know all of the Spurs fixture results dating back to the 50s?
Probably not. 8-0.
9-1 against Wigan in 2009. Remember that? Or sorry, that was their best result. 9-1 beating Wigan. Who was their worst defeat to?
6-0 to Liverpool.
7-1 to Newcastle in 1996.
Weird.
West Ham. All right, last two.
West Ham. I'm gonna say 7-1.
Close, 6-0 versus Barnsley.
Okay.
And what's
I'm
their
gonna
worst
say
result?
7-1 for this one as well. Then
7-1 is the worst result against both Manchester United in 2000 and Blackburn Rovers in 2001. So you have 7
I
points.
got 8 points. No,
8?
I thought it was up to 7. We'll do the math later. We'll VAR this.
All right, let our fans tweet at us.
Yeah. Let our fan.
Hey, Spidey fans, tweet at us. All right, Wolverhampton Wanderers is our final team in the longest game ever
8-1.
played. 4-0 is their best ever win. They do not score goals.
Wow, they don't like it up them. And then 7-1.
So they also don't concede as many goals. 5-0 to Chelsea, to Fulham, and to United. So
Okay.
Wolves likes to keep things boring. Typically.
I was gonna say, I bet you a lot of teams have like several 5-0s in their closets.
Oh yeah.
You know?
So this whole game was just an exercise in perspective from me alone.
Did it work?
No, I'm still upset, and I just can't wait for the end of the day when I can drink alcohol or smoke marijuana.
And
That's
I
where we're at.
just can't wait to be drunk. Dun, 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 dun.
Starring Jonathan Taylor Thomas as the alcoholic lion.
Is he an alcoholic lion now, or is he just like a rich guy who doesn't care about?
He goes,
Joke.
everybody look left, and then they look left, and he takes a shot.
Everybody look right.
Everybody look, and then they're like,
Everybody stop
and then
there.
he points, and then just gets hit by the front of a bus. He's pointing at those lights.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff. I think this hour-and-a-half long podcast has been a long enough funeral for me, don't you think?
I think so. To be fair, half hour of that was your very fun game.
It was as fun as asparagus or chores. All right, dude. Let's hope the next time that we talk, there's just like not like a soccer 9/11 to discuss for me.
Let's hope.
All right, bye, Jeff.
Bye.
Meet the Suckers. Meet the Suckers. A soccer podcast.